We're learning Ilu Nishmas Shlomo Bas Meir Shlomo Bas what?
It's Sarah Bas Shlomo.
Okay, so Ilu Nishmas Sarah Bas Shlomo and the Shema Shavan Aliyah.
Amen. Shkaya.
Okay, so we saw the Mishnah and described that a Yevamot and Ul Aroyos, the kinyan takes place b'shas hara. And we said we had a whole bunch of examples of a bia gerua, whether it was be'oinis, be'ratzim, be'shoigeg, be'mezid, be'onu. It was a whole bunch of, and so the definition of hara is a little ambiguous. In fact, it's a machlokes. If we can divide the act of intimacy up to three parts. We can divide it into three parts. Part what's called nishika. That's before any penetration. The nishika is just the ivarim touch each other. Then there's what's called tachnasas atara. That's where the head of the aver goes in. And then there's gemar bia where there'd be mazriya zera where there would be a completion of the act. So the Gemara, we're going to have machlokes between Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, I think. Machlokes exactly what hara is, to be mechayev me. So we're up to Nun Hey Amid Beis. Nun Hey Amid Beis. We are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 lines up. Amar Shmuel. Hara, what is hara? Sunishika. This is again the pushing up, the one aver against the other. Mashal Adam shemaniach etzboy al piv. A person would put his finger on his lips. It's not possible that the basar doesn't separate a little bit. So who adin, by even without even without entering at all, it would be considered an act of erva yibichayev. Kiyasar Rabbi Rav Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Shmuel, who lived in Bavel. Now Rabbi Yochanan was the Gadol Hador in Eretz Yisrael. When Rabbi Rav Huna came, he reported the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Names are important. He reported the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Gemar Bia b'shifcha charufa zu achnasas atara. The Gemar Bia by shifcha charufa is achnasas atara. So let's see, guys. Let's outside. We saw yesterday that shifcha charufa was uniquely different than any of the other arroyos. We said for a man to be chayiv the osham shifcha charufa, he would need a gemar bia because it says shechva zera over there. Even if it's not mitzvah zera, Taisa says, but again, you need total. You need the gid to be totally in. That's over there. So what is considered by gemar bia by shifcha charufa, guys? That's hachnasas atara. Mashma that a state before that is considered nishika, and Rabbi Yochanan and Shmuel are in agreement. Guys, let's view it, guys, as level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is nishika, level 2 is achnasas atara, and level 3 is the gemar bia. So Shmuel says that level 1 is hara. Says Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Rav Chanan and Rabbi Yochanan, level 2 is what is level 2 is achnasas atara. That's gemar bia. So if level 2 is gemar bia, it must be level 1. Nishika is hara, and therefore, according to this, they're not arguing. There's not an argument over here, right? Says Ella, what do you have to say? Masav Rav Sheshes Shechva Zera Ein Chayev Ella Al Bias Hameruk. Right? It says by Shivcha Rufa the lashon of Shechva Zera. So that's mashma level 3, fellas. My love Meruk Gid, where that's level 3, where there was Mazriya Zera. I saw in the Besifta he quotes a Toisvis in Chulin Dav Chav Tes Dibra Maskol Umeruk. Meruk is mashma the lashon of Gemar v'Soifei Pu'ula. It's the completion of an action. So therefore, Meruk would be the Gemar Bia when you complete the action. So it's mashma that what is Shifcha Charufa? Level 3, not level 2. That's the kasha. It says Merlai Meruk Torah. It means level 2. It means level 2, and you have Masriya Zera even without going totally inside, just a little bit. Kiyasa Rav Dimi, now Rav Dimi showed up, and so right now there's no machlokes between Shmuel and Rabbi Rav Chana and Rabbi Yochanan. They were both told Nishika Se'eva would be hara, which, guys, is a tremendous chumrah, right? Tremendous chumrah. Kiyasa Rav Dimi Rabbi Yochanan, hara is zu achnasas atara. No, it's not level 1. hara is level 2. And this l'chayra, he's arguing. According to Rav Dimi, Rabbi Yochanan and Shmuel are arguing. Shmuel holds what hara is level 1. And Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rav Dimi's report, is holding what? Hara is level 2. Echnasas HaTorah is level 2. Amrulai, they said to Rav Dimi, well, Rabbi Rav Chana Omahachi, he didn't say so. He said that what? That Echnasas HaTorah is what? Is Gemar Bia. Mashma, that level 1 is Neshika. That he, in other words, he's disagreeing with Rabbi Yochanan what exactly is Hara. Is it Neshikas or is it what? Is Echnasas HaTorah? Says Amalahu. So Rav Dimi said, Ihu Shakroi, either he's lying, or no Shakroi, or I'm lying. In other words, you're not getting the right report. Ki Asa Ravin Rabbi Yochanan. Now we have a third report in Rabbi Yochanan. We have first Rabbi Chana, then Rav Dimi. Now we have Ravin. Ki Asa Ravin Rabbi Yochanan. Hara is Zu Hachnasas HaTorah. So Hara is level 2. Hachna is level 2. Says the Gemara, Ada Rabba bar Rav Chana Vadai Polig. Vada, he argues on Rabbi Rav Chana. Because Rabbi Rav Chana, according to him, that was Gemar Bia. That right? He said Achnasas HaTorah is level 2 is Gemar Bia. Level 2 is Gemar Bia. And he's saying level what? No, level 2 is what is Hara. Right. So Zicha, he argues on the report of Rabbi Rav Chana. But at the Shmuel Meilem a Polig. Like, in other words, who's to say he argues on Shmuel? Could it be that what? Neshika barachnasas HaTorah hara karilei? That from the time of Neshika until Achnasas HaTorah, in other words, that all is level 1 and level 2 are hara. So maybe Shmuel is saying one thing, and Ravin is saying something else. They're both describing hara. What's hara? Either one is hara. Kios. In other words, don't think that if you hold Neshika's hara that anything beyond that is Gemar Bia. It's still hara. In other words, the beginning of hara is Neshika, guys, and it extends up to Achnasas HaTorah. But don't think Achnasas HaTorah is Gemar Bia. In other words, the nafkamina will be you won't be koina by ba, you won't be chayiv and asham toli by shif charufa. That's what he said. So no, it's Lav Dafki is saying he's arguing. However, Kiyasir of Shmuel bar Yehuda Rabbi Yochanan, a fourth report, guys, a fourth report. First we have Rabbi Chana, then Rav Dimi, then Rav Ravin. Now we have Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda says Rabbi Yochanan, hara zu achnasas HaTorah. What is hara? That's level 2, and Gemar Bia is Gemar Bia mamish. That's level 3. So this is clearly what is. We have machloikis that Rabbi Yochanan argues on Shmuel. Shmuel says Neshika's hara is level 1, and Rabbi Yochanan says it's level 2. Anything beyond that, anything back in the other direction, upata aleha, you'll be pata on it, upalig ad Shmuel, and this will be argument Shmuel. So that's the machlokes between Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, according to his final say, is what is considered hara. That the Mishnah says hara yichayev, the Mishnah says hara yikana yivama. What is that? That is, according to Shmuel, neshika, just touching up, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, you'd have to go ahead and have achnasas HaTorah. Very good. I think we're getting involved. I think we're getting beyond the scope of the share. Let's get. Does the Ish get involved? But what do you mean?
Say, did I ask her? In other words, it's a question of the three.
Thank you. Very. Hesh. There's no adis for this. There's no adis. You have to. It's all zman. It's all time. In Saita, we'll see you have to see Kishferes Hanoid. We spoke about but again, I don't think we want to discuss this more than share. I don't think so. So, I mean, you want to, but we're not going to. Okay, says the Gemara Vaita. Dr. Press agrees we should go on. We said whether there's ha'ara or goimer yokaina. So it's going back on the beginning of the Mishnah. Okay, it's going back on the beginning of the Mishnah. Now, to understand this Gemara, I have to go ahead and be magdim. Guys, listen up. A kohen eats truma. If a non-kohen eats truma, yechayiv misas b'dei shemayim. It's really a very severe avera to eat. It's not, you don't get malchus, you don't get kares, you get misas b'dei shemayim. But it's a very severe avera. It's a very severe avera. There's a chiddush. If a bas Yisrael marries a kohen, as long as they're married, he eats truma. If she has a child, she'd continue to eat truma. However, if she doesn't have a child, then she'd go back to what, to a father's house and not eat truma. Okay. Now, at which point in time does she eat truma? We know in the marriage process there's two parts. There's Erisin, where you mekadesh the isha, and then the suin, where you would nichtas into the rishus. So midaraisa, it's bishas Erisin. Midaraisa, as soon as he is mekadesha, she could eat truma. However, because of two reasons, the Gemara in Kesubas Daf Zayin on the base gives a derabbanan to Kesuas why she doesn't eat truma during the period of Erisin. During Erisin, where is she living? She's living with her parents. So if then she's going to have in her possession truma, we're worried she may come home, bring it into the house, and be mechayiv her parents or her brothers and sisters misib b'nei shemayim. So to avoid that, they said she can't eat truma until what? She goes and lives with her husband, which is b'shas nesuin. Good. A second reason given is because of simpum. It's because of maybe that if she's going to go ahead and eat truma when she's what? She is an arusa, when the kohen is mekadesha, and he finds something in her that a blemish or a wound or something that he finds repulsive, he may retroactively say, I'm not married. It was the mekach tois. And Nimsa, she would have been what? She would have been not married to him, and she was eating truma. So to avoid those two issues, those are two problems. Therefore, the Chacham made a gzeira, the whole time she's a arusa, she cannot eat truma. With that in mind, let's begin the Gemara. Now, when it says kaina, what does that mean? Now, guys, this is again, this is bein ba'oinis, bein b'ratzin, bein b'shoigeg, bein b'mezid. There's no, this is not a great bia. It's not a classic. Ani mechavin to mekayim the mitzvahs of yibum. It's a bia gerua. It's a lacking a bia. Ka'or is what's considered a bia, but it's your kaina. So what's now my kaina? Rav kaima says Rav, when any one of these bias gerua mentioned in the Mishnah that we just mentioned, right? Everything. She's a full-fledged wife, and she would eat truma. Let's say she gets married, or yibum, the kohen goes to overseas, and he never lived with her again. She would eat truma. She would eat truma as long as he's alive. She'd eat truma. He'd only be kaina regarding what it states in the parsha. Only what it says in the parsha. Lirish b'nichsei achiv, to be yoirish the nechasim of his brother. Ule poitra min hayibum, and to pata from yibum, says Rashi. Let's see Rashi can tell us. Ule poitra min yibum. What would that mean? The mace, if he would die, the loy bona meisha acheres, and he has children from another woman, muteres l'shuk, she'd be permitted to marry to the street. Or you might see a beget, loy boy chalitza. In other words, that act koino would make her to take off the zika and make her a full-fledged wife, vis-a-vis the halacha of you would need chalitza. Or your third nafkamina, im haisa latzara, if she had a co-wife, niftara b'bias shalzu, you'd be partner. But however, regarding eating truma, you would not. So when it says kaina by Yevama, it only means in the Yevama dikadinim. It does not mean as a full-fledged wife, only the Yevama dikadinim. Now, back in the Gemara. Min anasuin, from Nisuin, where she falls in front of him from a kohen. In other words, guys, she had been married fully to the kohen, to the brother, and meaning she was eating truma. She was eating truma. So again, we have a machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Rav says kohen in truma, and Shmuel says not. Guys, let's just focus on one thing. Rav says truma, Shmuel says no truma. That'll make the Gemara much easier. Rav says she eats truma, Shmuel says he doesn't. Now, where is she falling from to this yavam? Is she falling from a state of eating truma or not eating truma? Says the Gemara, Minan Esuin, if she's falling from a state that she was eating truma because she had been machnis to the dead man, the Divya called, even according to Shmuel, Achla. Why? The Havis Ka'achla Meikara. She was eating before he died. She was in a sewer, right? She was eating before he died. So now that she dies, she doesn't lose that right. Everyone would agree that to the Yavam, she would continue to eat truma. He pligi. When's the machlekes Rav and Shmuel? The Rav says she eats truma, and Shmuel says he doesn't. Mino erisin. Now, this is interesting because if it was erisin, she was not eating truma. Remember, they made the gezerah because she's going to bring it home to daddy, or because of simple. Rav Amar oicheles. You know why? The Rabbi Rachmana Bias shoygeg kimezid, a bias is shoygeg kimezid. In other words, if it was a full-fledged bia, everyone would be maida, you would eat truma. So the fact that it's what? It's not a good bia, it's a shoygeg kimezid, nonetheless, the Torah made it a complete bia, and therefore she eats truma. Ushmul ama, no. Ki Rabbi Rachmana, the Torah, what does the Torah do? Lo ukme b'makam baal, to go ahead and take the place of the dead man. La alumi baal loy, but to go ahead and make him stronger than the baal, that it won't do. If she's falling from Erisin, she wasn't eating truma. Now you're telling me that now she gets a higher position because she falls to Yibum? The brother can take the place of the dead brother. He can't one-up the dead brother. And since by the dead brother she wasn't eating, says Shmuel, she doesn't eat here as well. With a bia gerua, with a regular bia, of course she would. But with the bia gerua, one b'shoygeg or b'mezid, whatever it was, then she would not eat. So that's machlokes. Says Rav, the Torah says it's a full-fledged bia, and therefore she eats truma. Shmuel says what? She's not better than this. And since the state is speaking, she's falling from Erisin, that she never lived with her husband and never ate truma in the house of her husband because she never lived with him. Still, says Shmuel, therefore you don't. Okay. For us, the Shmuel tamei, and Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. Dama Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, Kol she'abal Michael, anytime the Baal feeds. So, for example, if there was Nisuin, the Baal is going to feed her. Yavam Machel, the Yavam could feed her. V'chol she'ena Baal Michael, and when the Baal can't feed, Yavam Eina Michael. And since over here it's speaking, guys, what? B'shas Erisin, and therefore the Baal is not feeding her, the Yavam also can't feed a Truma. That's the machlokes Rav and Shmuel according to this lashon. Meisvei b'gnei Eskan Shmuel, Bas Yisrael Pikachas, Enoma Bas Yisrael, Shenis Arsel Lekoyen Pikeach, who is betrothed by Kohen Pikeach, V'lei Hispik Lekoinsa, At Shenis Charesh, and he didn't have time to do nisuin until he became a cheresh. He lost his ability to talk or hear. Eina oicheles. She doesn't eat. She doesn't eat. Why? She was an arusa and never became nisua. She remains in that state, and therefore she doesn't eat. However, mace after nisuin, he dies. The naflu yavam cheresh, and she falls in front of a yavam cheresh. Oicheles. She does eat. Ubezu yafa koyach hayavam mikoyach habal, and in this way it's yafa koyach hayavam mikoyach habal, because by the baal she wasn't going to eat, because the baals if the baal is a cheresh he would not go ahead and get it to eat, but the yavam cheresh would. So that is better, because again the Torah said the Torah made this be a gerua by a yavam to be kaina. That's pashut like Rav. Ubezu, in this way, Yafa Koyach Yavam Mikoyach Habal. Bishleim Rav Nicha. Very good according to Rav, it makes sense. Because the Torah made, what did the Torah do, guys? It made Yavam a Bia Gerua like a regular full-fledged Bia. El Shmuel Kasha. Like Shmuel, how could the Yavam be stronger than the Baal? And just like the Baal can't, this one can't as well. Amalach Shmuel, Emahachi. Shmuel is going to cut and paste, guys. Shmuel is going to say, don't read it the way you read it. Here's the way you read it. He didn't get a chance to do chuppah, to nisuin. Okay, that's the same as the first lashon. Guys, here's where he adds. There you go. Kanas, if first he did chuppah, and meaning she was in a suah, and therefore what? She was eating truma. And only achakach, after she was in the sewer eating truma, then the scharesh, oicheles, she would eat. Mace, v'nafle yavam cheresh, oicheles. Okay, she eats. Now, so therefore, what do we gain over here? Shmuel said it's speaking where there was nisuin. Fred the Gemara kasha, umay bezu. Right, guys, what did you gain over here? Either way, she was eating. In other words, she was eating before and eating afterwards. Bishleim in the first lashon, what you gained is as a Baal Nischarish, no. As a Yavam Charish, yes. But over here, they're both eating. But once there was Nisuin, to eat truma, so there's no difference whether you became a cheresh afterwards or by the yavam. So therefore, what's the mabasu? Where is the yafa koyach of the yavam more than the baal? Says the Gemara. I'll tell you what it is. The ilu baal cheresh meikara before Nisuin, guys. Baal cheresh meikara before Nisuin lo yacheles. The ilu yavam cheresh meikara after Nisuin achla. Despite the fact that what his bia is a bia gerua, nonetheless you'll eat. So therefore, that's the gain over here. As before Nisuin by baal cheresh not. And even though after Nisuin he's a cheresh, the yavam is a cheresh, his knisa lechuppah, he'll go ahead and feed her. His bia, I should say. Vika the army, there's another lashon. Guys, in the first lashon, the machlokes was what? By Erisin, and they agreed by Nisuin. Second lashon, Vika the army, min asurin kuliyama lo yachla. Even Rav would say, if you didn't eat by Erisin, by the home of the husband, you're not eating by the yavam. That's not what the machlokes is. Right? The whole loyachla b'chaye baal, because you didn't eat in the chaye baal, and we're not going to use the svara that the Torah is marba a bia gerua to go ahead and elevate it to be a full-fledged bia, to go ahead and be considered chuppah nesuin to let her eat truma. Ki pligi. When's the machlokes between Rav and Shmuel? Minan nesuin. In the first lashon, everyone agreed by nesuin. No, in this lashon, the machlokes is by nesuin. Rav Amar oicheles. Why? She ate before and she's eating now. Ushmula me'eno oicheles. Ki Rabbi Rachmana bia shoige kemezed ledvar mamurim beparsha aval chol mili loy. So according to Shmuel, she's downgraded. Guys, according to Shmuel, she's downgraded. Listen, if she was in a suah, according to Rav, she eats. If he dies, the Yavam eats. Same status before and afterwards. Says Shmuel, no. If he's going ahead and not doing a full-fledged bia, he's doing a bia gerua, right? B'mezid with the one kavana, b'shoigeg, he thought it was with his wife. Those are the bia gerua. Then the Torah said that's only going to be kaina le'inyan what, as he said above, le'inyan the yevamistic din, le'inyan being going ahead and requiring a get, le'inyan inheriting your brother, but le'inyan feeding truma, a bia gerua does not work. So despite the fact she ate beforehand, if the yavam does a bia gerua, she loses that right. That's Shmuel. Rav says she doesn't lose that right, she still eats. Fred the Gemara Kash. Okay, we're going to ask on Shmuel. From Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, Kol Shabal Michael Yavam Michael. What was the rule of thumb? If the Baal feeds, the Yavam feeds. So if it's speaking the Suin, does the Baal feed her? Yeah. Yes. So therefore the Yavam also should feed her. Again, what's the rule? Shmuel said a rule. This is Shmuel's own rule. Guys, Shmuel's the one who said this. Anytime the married to the first husband would feed Truma, the Yavam also would feed Truma. So over here, you're telling me the opposite. You're telling me that even when the Baal feeds, the Yavam doesn't. Ema, so don't say Kol HaBaal Machel, Kol Bia She'Baal Machel. Any Bia that the Baal will be Machel, a normal Bia of Nesu and L'chuppah that was made for the purpose of that will feed. Yavam Machel Ba. Kol Bia She'ena Baal Machel Ba. Let's say it's a Bia that is not a Bia that would not make her Nesua. Guys, he's boiled one woman, he thinks it's another woman. That's not going to make a Nesua, right? It's not going to make a Nesua. So then in that Bia Grua, in that case, what? The Yavam will not feed. Okay, one more time. Machlokes Rav and Shmuel is not by Erisin according to the second Lashon. Second Lashon, Rav would agree by Erisin. Since she doesn't eat Truma by Erisin, she will not eat Truma after to the Yavam. By Nesua, however, that's where they argue. Rav says she ate before when the husband was alive because she was in Nesua. She'll eat after the husband dies. Says Shmuel, no. She ate when the husband was alive. But if you're telling me that the Yavam did a Bia Gerua, he thought it was a B'shoigeg or B'mezid, right? He did a Bia Gerua, then you won't eat. Shmuel himself said, anytime you feed, the Yavam feeds. No, that's any Bia that the Yavam would be a good Bia. Le'inyan Chuppah would be a Bia Le'inyan Yavam. But this Bia would not be a good Bia Le'inyan Chuppah because he thinks it's B'shogeg. this also would not work. That's so far, those are two shittas. Now we're going to ask on Shmuel. Says the Gemara. Meisive. Bas Yisrael pikachas, shenis arsel lekoyim pikeach. A Bas Yisrael, who is normal, who is engaged, she's betrothed, she accepted kedushin for a kohen. For his pikla koinsa, he didn't get a chance to do chuppah. Ad shenis charesh, until he became a cheresh. Until he became a cheresh, he didn't get a chance to do it until he became a cheresh. Eino echeles, you would not eat. Again, she's not oris. Meis v'nafle yavam cheresh echeles, you would eat. Ubezu yafa koyach yavam mikoyach bal. Now, bishlem l'rav mitaretz kin mitaretz meikara. You can give the same teretz that it's speaking where you did chuppah. It's the same. In other words, Rav becomes Shmuel. So that it's speaking where what? Before he became this cheresh, he had chuppah. So Memela, if he had chuppah before and you ate before, and despite the fact it's a bia guru afterwards, you'd still eat. But El Shmuel Kasha, like Shmuel, what are you going to answer, guys? No, even if you had Kanisa beforehand, that she was a full-fledged woman, you're not eating afterwards because he's a cheresh. A cheresh is equivalent to a shoygeg. It's a bia gerua. So if Shmuel is of the opinion that a bia gerua cannot cause you to eat truma, how in the world over here, how can I shine this brisa? This brisa clearly says you could. And the Gemara concludes, kasha, in fact, it's shver on Shmuel. It would be shver on Shmuel, this brisa. Kasha means is usually that there's a teretz to it. Tiyufta means you're out. Tiyufta means you're out of the ballpark. Kasha means you're in the ballpark. We just didn't answer you yet. Okay, that's the sugya. Interesting. A continuation of that sugya. What about if a child is involved? Tan Rabbanan. Bas Yisrael pikachas shenis arsa lekoyin pikeach v'hispik lekoyinsa at shenis charesh. He didn't get a chance to go ahead and marry her until he became a cheresh. Eino echeles, nothing, no chiddush. You can't eat truma. Noilud laben. However, if she'd have a son, echeles, then he would eat. Meis haben. If the child dies. Okay, now question. Once she's eating and the child dies, what's the din? So Reb Nassan Omer, echeles. Reb Nassan says you continue to eat. And the Chacham say that what? That you don't eat. My time with Reb Nassan. What's the reason Reb Nassan says that you continue to eat? So Amarabba, Hayil Shekvar Achla. Since she already ate before, so just because she lost a child, that she doesn't lose that right. Amalei Abaye Alamiata, Bas Yisrael Shenisis L'Koyin, a Bas Yisrael that's married to a Koyin, Umeslei, and he dies, Teichel, shouldn't she eat? Shekvar Achla. Guys, what's the din? If she's married, dies, no children. No more, right? But if you're svara, so you tell me the same thing. If the ben dies, that what? She was eating beforehand. So when the husband died, she also was eating beforehand. Yet we know when the husband dies, she does not continue to eat truma. So who adin if the ben dies? So therefore, what do you have to say? Elikivin the meislei, since the husband died, the kohen died, pakale kedusha say mina. The kedusha of eating truma is gone from her. Hachanami, even the meislei, since the son died, paka kedusha say mina. So therefore, that's not a reason. So we have to search for another reason. Why does Reb Nassan hold if the son dies, she can continue to eat truma? Why does Reb Nassan hold if the son dies, she can continue to eat truma? Eli, you have to say, Rabbi Yosef, another svara in another svara. Alam Rabbi Yosef, Kesav Rab Nassan, Suei Cheresh, Machilim B'Truma, then the suin of a Cheresh, when a Cheresh goes ahead and does chuppah, it would feed truma. Normally you'd worry if you come to do this, you may come to do it by erisin, by kedushin. And we're not geyser that if we allow you to do it b'shas nesuim, which is chuppah, you may come to do it b'shas what? B'shas kedushin. And that's his svara. That's Reb Nassan's svara. So Amalei Abaya, what? What? Nothing to do with the child. Okay, Nachinami, Mendy's right. It has nothing to do with the child. Guys, listen. Mendy's very right. It has nothing to do with the child then. It has everything to do with what? The Nesuin of a Cheresh, we're not worried. We're not worried. We're not going to make a Gezerah. Okay. So now, says the Gemara, Amalei Abayi, Hachi, Noidul Laben, Lamali, Why do you have to say Noila Laben? Right? Why do you have to say Noila Laben? And for the Gemara, Mishum Rabbanan, that the Rabbanan Maida, it's for the Rabbanan, it's not for Reb Nosson, guys. Reb Nosson says we're not going to buy this if the cheresh is goes ahead and is maknas l'chuppah, you eat, and you're not worried about other kedushin. So therefore, it has nothing to do with the ben. So why do you tell me Noila Laben? The chiddush that even though the chachamim argue when there's no son, but by the kedusha the sui cheresh, they argue that you don't eat. They would admit that if you have a son, you would eat. Fred Gemara v'lifla greb nasan alayo bereisha. Guys, let's go back over it. Tan Rabbanon bas Yisrael pikachas shenisar selakayim pikayach lehispik lekoin sa'at shenischarish eino echeles. Right then and there, Reb Nosson should say echeles. Right then and there, Reb Nosson should say echeles. Right there. Fred Gemara, why did Reb Nosson argue right away in the reisha? Why do you wait? And the Gemara shavaglu rabbanon adam misayim masayu v'ad polik alayu. He waited till they finished the words, and then all at the end that what he argued. So he's arguing on both. He's arguing not only on ben, he's even arguing on what, even if there's just nesuin of a cherish. Now, it doesn't make any sense. Guys, let's look over the brisa. Here's the way the brisa should read according to you. According to you, Rabbi Yosef, here's the way your brisa should read. Tanrabanan bas Yisrael bikacha shenisas lekoyin bikeach lehispil lekoyin sashin scharish eino echeles noilu ben echeles meis haben. It should then say chacham say eino echeles. Reb Nosson says echeles. Why are you putting Reb Nosson over there? If Reb Nosson's waiting till the end of the chachamim, they jumped the gun. They spoke too soon. They should wait all the way to the end, guys, and they're not. Back in the Gemara, says the Gemara Hachi. If you're telling me Reb Nosson waited to the end, listen. Here's the way you should lead it. Meis haben eino echeles. Reb Nosson oima echeles. So why did it say Reb Nosson oima echeles and then the chacham spoke? If Reb Nosson's waiting to the end, you shouldn't have the chachamim preceding Reb Nosson. You should have the chachamim preceding Reb Nosson, and you don't. Says Gemara kasha. Another Mishnah kasha. Very interesting. Okay. V'chein habo al achas mikol haroyos. We said that what if you go ahead and have any erva yichai b'shas hara. Now the Mishnah, guys, let's go look back in the Mishnah for a second. It's been a while. They brought in the din of Yevamot. Let's go to the Mishnah again. Habal Yevimtoi, the first din of Yevamot. Guys, we're on Nun Gimel Amid Beis. Habal Yevimtoi, Ben B'Shoyge, Ben B'Meza, Ben B'Oinis, Ben B'Rotzin. Afilu Shoyge V'Mizida, going through the whole thing, right? Okay, that's all the din what? It says Koina. Now, like chilik ben bia lebia, there's no chilik whether it's bia kedarka or bia shloi kedarka, and there's no difference on mara. The chein abal achas mikol roish b'toira oy psulais kegoin al malu kain gadol or grush v'chutz kain hedyet mamzer sin Israel by Sol mamzer. Okay, so now this v'chein abal achas mikol roish b'toira oy psulais. What's it going back on? It can be going back on hara. It can be going back on kedarka, shloi kedarka. What exactly is it going back on? That's the subject of this dispute in our Gemara. So, v'chein abab alachas b'kol royas. Amar Rav Amram. Ha milsa amar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes told us this thing. V'anarinu le'inayin mimas nisan. And from our Mishnah, he brought a raya. In other words, his words were illuminated from the Mishnah. What does it say in our Mishnah? Eishes Yisrael shenen nasa. Let's see, from a Mishnah. Eishes Yisrael shenen nasa. A woman was physically forced upon by another man. Afal pisha muteres labayla, even though she's mutter to her husband. Pesula lekahuna. She would be what? She would be puzzle to kahuna. She would be puzzle to the kahuna. In other words, she'd be what we call a zayna. You know, since she's been a nusa, she's puzzle. The tanatuna and our brisa and our Mishnah would substantiate Rav Shesh's words. Our Mishnah is illuminating Rav Shesh's words. It says anyone who has any arroyas that says in the Torah oy psulois or psulois, right? And my v'chein, my lav loishna b'shogeg, loishna b'mezev, loishna be'anos, which is anusa, loishna b'ratzon, the katani pasla loy, the katani pasla stop. Guys, so l'chayra you have a raya. You have a raya that what? An onus, which was done to what? To anyone will passel. It passes, right? It passes. That's it. That's it. In other words, you simply stated Rav Sheshes is din. Guys, what happened? Guys, what happened over here? Later, this poor woman was an anusa. Good. She's mutter to her husband. But if her husband would die, again, and Alman is mutter to a kohen, this woman would not be mutter to a kohen. That's Rav Sheshes is din. And there's a raya from a Mishnah. B'chein, in our Mishnah it says Abba kol roya shebetayra, or what? Or pasla, and it says anus. So you see a raya that anusa would pasel. So you have a raya to Rav Sheshes from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says an anus would pasel. So that's what that is a raya to Rav Sheshes. If it's going on that, says the Gemara, no, I'm sorry. Law, it's not a raya. My v'chein of yibum is going on hara. Just like hara by yibum, fellas. Just like this, again, a Mishnah opened up, yibum was the first din. Just like there's a din of hara by yibum, who had din, there's a din of hara by what? By arayas. Now, in yesterday's daf, if you think about it, we learn out Yevamot Yavo Aleho, we learn out what from arayas. It's not the opposite way around. It's not that you learn arayas from yibum about hara. Where does it say hara, guys? For those who were here yesterday and share, it says it by nida. And then we have Rabbi Yona's Hekesh to go ahead and put it all together. And then we have the limudim of kicha and bia. But at the end, we're learning out Yevamot Yavo Aleha from Layavai Mamza B'Kal Hashem. So Memela, if you're telling me it's going on Ra, it makes no sense. Again, we said a din by Yibum, and then we said a din v'chein, the same din that we stated by Yibum is by Arayos. If you're telling me it's going on Hara, it makes no sense. It's the opposite way. You learn out Hara by Yibum from Arayos, not from Arayos from Yibum. Fred the Gemara, v'chein Hara. Hara deman, ilema d'Arayos, l'meima d'Arayos, yalfim Yevama. You mean you tell me you learn out Hara from Yevama? Adarabba. Yevama yalfim Arayos, bia. We learned it what yesterday, Layavim Mamza B'Kal Hashem, and it says Yevama Yavai Aleha. Says the Gemara, the Ika hara b'arayis kasiv. It's said by nida erva. It's hara by erva by nida. So therefore, that v'chein cannot be hara. So therefore, that you want to say that Rav Shesh's raya is not a good raya. No, that so far Rav Shesh's raya is a good raya because the v'chein can't be going hara. Ella, another way to upslug the raya to Rav Shesh's that an anusa would be asa to a kaye. Elamai v'chein ashalei kedarka da'arayis. In other words, just like by Yevama shalei kedarka works, so too by arayis it would work. Says the Gemara, Adarabba, Ika mishkvei isha by arayis kasiv. Guys, where do you learn out bia shalei kedarka? It says mishkvei isha. Mishkvei isha. Mishkvei is two types of relations. One kedarka, one shalei kedarka. And that's said in the Pasha of arayis. It's not said what? It's not said by Yevama, so it can't be going on the Shloi Kedarka. It can't be going on Ra, it can't be on Shloi Kedarka, so it must be going on Anusa. And L'chayr Rav Sheshes has a good raya that if a woman was an Anusa when she was married and she got why her husband died, she's an Almana, she can't marry a Kohen. Says Ela Mai V'chein Ashloi Kedarka D'Chayve Lavim. Oh no, the V'chein is going on the Shloi Kedarka of Chayve Lavim. Amar L'Kohen Gadol Grush V'Chalus L'Kohen Hedjit. It doesn't say Mishkavei Isha over there, but doesn't say Mishkvei Isha over there. So by Yevama, just like by Yevama, it says what? Shaloi Kedarka. So we learn out by Chayve Lavim, Amar L'Kohen Gadol, Grusha Chalus L'Kohen Hedjit, we learn out Bia Shaloi Kedarka, and therefore Rav Sheshes does not have a raya. The V'chein is going on to Chayve Lavim Bia Shaloi Kedarka. That's what's going on. Okay. Amar Rava, says Rava, Eishes Kayin, Shenen Nasa, Eishes Koyin that was forced. Eishes Koyin Shenasa, Eishes Koyin that was forced. Baila Loika Aleha Mishum Zaina. Now, again, if a husband was with her afterwards, there's two problems, guys. One, she's a Zaina, meaning she's pasel, and two, she's Tameh. She's considered Tameh. She's like, she's the pasuk says. This is by Machzeh Grusha So. Lo yucha bala rishain asher shulcha lashuv kachta liyos lo leisha Achrei shehu tama'a, right? After she was what? To tama'a. Ki ta'evahi lefnei Hashem. It's ta'eva to take it back after she lived with another man. So there's two isurim that are possible. One, that since she was with another man, she's a zayna. Again, remember, we speak it all the time. It's a zayna is not the way they use it in modern Hebrew. That's a kadesha. A zayna is one who's possible to kahuna because there was a bia that's not permitted according to the Torah. So if a kohen lives with his wife after she was an anusa, one, you got a zayna problem, and two, you have a tuma problem. And so the Gemara is going to address both issues. Says the Gemara inside. Amarava. Eishes kohen shenen nasa. If the Baal is with it afterwards, he gets malchus for the zayna. Fred the Gemara mishum zayna in mishum tumaloi, right? Why not? The chayra al tuma we just said she's tummy. I mean, whatever. She mean not allowed to be with her. Says Gemara, Ema, don't say only zayna, af mishum zayna, even mishum zayna, both. Master Rav Zera, the pasuk says by a saita. The pasuk says. It was hidden from the eyes of her husband. She wasn't forced. Then asura. If she was forced, muteres. She'd be mutter to her husband. And there's another person that even though she was forced, asura. Who's that? Eishes kohen. Now. So we are inferring that. It's not stated outright, guys. It's a lava b'machalasei. If she was forced, she's off the hook. And there's another one that even was forced, she's on the hook. That doesn't get malchus. A lav that you infer from an asay does not get malchus. So Fred the Gemara Kasha, how can you give a malchus for znus? Lava b'machalasei asay. So Amarabba hakol hoya b'chal zayna. Every woman who is forced upon is b'chal zayna. So they're all out of the ballpark. In other words, any woman that was forced, even to whether Eishes Kayin or Eishes Yisrael, is out of the ballpark. Period. At this point in time, when it says she was forced, she's usher. Everyone's usher. Hakoloi b'chal zayna. And then when the Torah goes back and it says by Eishes Yisrael, and she wasn't forced asura. If she was willingly, then it's asa. But if she was forced to be muta, mechlal we can infer the eishes kayin kidikaimi kaimi, that the wife of a kayin stays the way it is. Pirish. Or everyone was out of the ballpark. Good. Everyone was a zayna. Everyone is allowed to live with this woman. The Torah then goes back and puts back in the ballpark. Who? It puts back an eishes Yisrael. That if the eishes Yisrael was forced, then she could live with her husband. But the one that is not an eishes Yisrael, eishes kayin, it's still out of the ballpark. It's still out of the ballpark. And who is that? And that's a lav, and that's the kayin. That's one lashon. Now we're going to have the same lashon, just not with the zayna, with the tumah part. Vikadiyami Amarabba, eishes kayin she'nasa, the wife of a kayin that was forced, by the like Allah mishum tumah. The Baal is like mishum tumah. Says no mishum tumah in mishum zayna loy, because tumah in zayna not alma, but aynis like karina be zayna. So we see that what by aynis she's not called a zayna. Master Rabbi Zera v'hilayin itfasa asura han itfasa mutaris v'yeshla acheres shafa pishin itfasa asura bezu eishes kayin. Lava b'machala say. So how can she tell me she gets malchus for tumah? You see, it's a lava b'machala say. It's a lav that you infer that doesn't get malchus. So Amar Rabba hakol hoyu b'chal achri yeshu tama. Everything was in the ballpark of being tamei, and therefore you get malchus. Right? It gets back in the ballpark. The chaldesh kaime, she stays in that state. Thank you all for listening.